Welcome to the latest podcast in a series from the Internationalist and the ANA. I'm Brendan Banaham, Managing Director of the Internationalist Group of Companies. We focus on the reinvention of marketing by connecting the people and ideas in international marketing through content, insights, thought leadership, community collaboration, and consulting. Today's podcast shares how people in our global community are not merely handling today's pandemic crisis, but helping us all to better navigate it. The ability to inspire people to be their best is valuable in difficult times, and no one does this better than marketers. I'll now turn the podcast over to Deborah Malone, founder of the Internationalist.
Thanks, Brendan, and welcome to another Internationalist TRENDSETTERS show. As Kirsten Allegri Williams surveys our new marketing world of increased screen time and work-from-home connectivity, she passionately believes that brands will now win entirely on digital differentiation. She says, "At this moment in history and for the foreseeable future, a brand's digital presence makes up the entirety of how it reaches customers." Kirsten has spent her career at the intersection of marketing and technology. This July, she became CMO of Episerver, a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for digital experience platforms. Today, we're talking with Kirsten about how technology helps brands differentiate themselves in a digital-first world through content, storytelling, data analytics, and the commerce experience. Welcome to the show, Kirsten.
Deborah, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Oh, that's great. Well, look, let's start. And it's always good to start by quoting someone. So I'm going to quote you in that you recently said, "At this moment in history and for the foreseeable future, a brand's digital presence makes up the entirety of how it reaches customers." Well, why don't we start by talking a little bit about that and why it's such a significant shift?
It's such a great question. When you think about the world that we are now operating in, living, working, it has created a sense of human connectivity that we all desire, this innate need that we need to connect. And, I feel so strongly that, now is the moment when both speed and creativity matter. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about how we have responded or need to respond to the racial tensions that exist, the emphasis and the heightening awareness and importance of climate change, as well as health and safety, these are things that will continue to surround us in terms of, how do we need to show up as a brand in this digital era. And, if you think about the increasing digital expectations that our customers have, it is one of the most incredible threats we have to our business is that the demands and expectations that our customers and partners have compared with the actual digital experience that we offer. And is it meeting those expectations? And so, I today, when it comes to digital experience, really believe that we need to help both growing brands compete digitally, as well as if you're in a large enterprise, looking at how to create more innovation, not just in the technology, but in your digital business model. And that's how marketing, digital teams, e-commerce growth drivers in the business all come together. And, really working to allow technology to streamline and simplify that aspect, which has felt very complex, but we are entering an age of hyper-personalization. And now more than ever, we need to know that we don't have to compromise between simplicity and sophistication in how we interact with our customers.
Well, my goodness, simplicity and sophistication, that is pretty extraordinary. And sometimes as I'm fumbling with some of the Zoom buttons, I wish I could manage both, particularly the share button, the slide share button. But you do make some very interesting points about speed and creativity. Someone spoke to me the other day about the fact that long-term planning is now 48 hours. So certainly, if nothing else, our perceptions of time have changed dramatically through this pandemic. And I don't know if it's because we're working at home or it's just that technology just accelerates everything. But you did mention something that's interesting that I might refer to as, I guess, the experience gap. And I think that probably in your years at SAP, you might have used that a lot. So let's just go with that for a minute. If the customer journey and the user experience on our screens is quite literally everything in a digital age, what does happen to personal connections? I mean, you did talk about we're entering an age of hyper-personalization. So let's talk about that. I mean, I'm wondering what happens to the role of sales, or is everything in the customer journey marketing driven now? I know those are a lot of issues, but I trust you can handle them all at once, given your last answer.
Well, I would say, as a marketing leader, if you consider over the past 10 years, this age of the consumer, and really being able to apply different types of technology to hyper target or hyper segment, understanding who your consumer, who your end customer is. But what we found is that over time, and this is not an unusual observation. I'm sure we all feel it, that the amount of data has also increased exponentially, and yet our ability to synthesize that data and what it means to personalize has not gotten any easier until now. And through AI and artificial intelligence driven personalization, it's actually, up until this point, very difficult for a marketer or a digital team to be able to understand all the different complex journeys that a buyer will go through before making a purchasing decision, whether that's a consumer business or in a business-to-business scenario where you have a longer buying decision journey. It's more complex. And so I think that emphasis where those stats, I think, Deborah, you and I and every marketer who's listening now are probably really, tired of, where the publishers or agency partners coming in and say, well, 75% of the buying decision happens online. It's like, well, we've been saying that for 10 years. What are we going to do about it? Right. And, now, being able through the ability to use digital personalization to automate, create the dynamic, targeting of who your customers are, you don't now need to have to also have a data scientist to have to dissect that. Now we have the ability, and at Episerver, we have the ability to actually not have to compromise between speed and quality, to not have to compromise between, a high-end, high-effort solution versus low-end and low experience, in terms of the outcome. We now can actually create something that's both has a high quality, but also at an effort level that connects digital teams. So whether that's a content editor and a marketer, or the product leader who's running the P&L for that business, also with the insights that are coming from within your digital platform, all of that can now be in the hands of every single person working together. So I think the digital technology changes not just how we use the insights, but also how we work together. And I do find that really inspiring, especially now where, as I mentioned, this human connectivity is so important. And we can't ever forget that the technology will never automate the human creativity, that the technology allows us to continue to create, really transformational and differentiated brand experiences online.
So that is interesting. And I do want to get back to the human aspect in a minute, but you also said something about differentiation. So in short, do you believe that brands will now win simply on digital differentiation?
Well, I believe more than ever it is at the forefront. Mm-hmm. So if you think about, what do we all want as chief marketing officers, as digital leaders? We want to create a highly differentiated brand experience for our customers. We also, at the same time, need to create accelerated business growth, especially in this time in light of the pandemic and environmental and social change. Being able to identify, decode the world in terms of what those new business opportunities are, absolutely sit squarely in the CMO. We all have to we have to continue to drive that growth for the business, all while increasing productivity, reducing costs. How many CMOs do we talk to? We all share something common, is that we have to continue to drive exponential business growth at the same time while optimizing what we have, doing more with less in many cases. Mm-hmm. And then finally, creating this culture of experimentation. We want to be able to innovate. We need to be able to understand how to fail fast, but create the kind of working environment and culture that allows teams to collaborate closely, that allows that constant, that constant desire to create a more compelling experience for our customers than the last. And you can only do that through experimentation. You think about those key drivers. Creating amazing content and digital experiences together with the optimization, which is the data and the science and the understanding of who our customer is and what they want and desire, bringing those things together are the drivers now for making that boardroom vision possible of brand differentiated experiences for customers.
Now, how do you make it emotional, though?
Well, if you consider, just think about the day in the life of a content editor, a content producer. We all want to create, engaging content. We want to speak the language of our customers. We want to draw them in with that human connection of empathy, and what they're searching for. That we ourselves. That we represent our brands and what they represent in a very human level, that we can create that emotional response that only artistry can bring with content, creative and engaging experiences. That's no different online today. The difference now is we need to hyper personalize and create a dynamic digital engaging experience for every single person that we touch. And so the challenge at hand for marketers and for digital teams now is that to be able to harness those insights, bring that together with the creative and content teams. So it's one strategy versus separate departments. No longer should it be acceptable that you run consumer testing or experience testing in a silo in another department once or twice a year. That's not acceptable now because the needs of consumers and customers are changing so rapidly, as you described just earlier. Like every 48 hours, we need to pivot and shift. And so I think that, when we think about this culture of experimentation, bringing the creators together with the digital team who's optimizing and leveraging insights, it's all one strategy now. And the technology is there to enable that at speed. so that you can react to the new digital business needs that are out there and market opportunities that we are uncovering.
Now, do you think that empathy will last beyond the COVID situation? Do you think empathy is a core emotion in that personalization, and dare I say, the humanization of business, even though it's more tech-driven?
We need to look at our strategies to drive humanized growth. And humanized growth is not something that exists just within the brand strategy and how you show up as a brand and the content and the creative articulation of your brand, but also all the stakeholders we serve. It's very clear that marketers and communicators now have an intrinsic role in also helping to drive and shape the culture of an organization in terms of our employees and how employees feel about a brand, even more paramount now than ever. The communities that we serve, not just our local communities, but our partner ecosystem and everyone who surrounds our businesses. And also our investor community is also a stakeholder that we need to continue to balance the needs of our financial outcomes against the other stakeholders that we serve. And of course, first and foremost, our customers. So, you consider empathy in our strategy. We also need to ensure that we're thinking about every stakeholder that we serve, and that when we're making those trade-offs, we're able to balance those requirements, because it's not just about the external brand and communications aspect of how we show up. It's also part of how do we articulate how our core business has changed as well.
Well, that is obviously a fundamental change, and I think, whether it's from the Business Roundtable and our new aspects of stakeholder capitalism, but what you just said sounds to me like the role of the CMO is far more complex and far more essential than ever before. And I know we've talked about a lot of shifts in consumers and shifts in businesses and where you go for growth and so on. But we haven't talked about how this has all affected the role of the CMO. As a CMO, do you care to take a stab at that?
Yeah, I'm inspired by the opportunity. I think that because we're in a moment where our digital experience online is now first and foremost, we have to create digital experiences for our companies and invest in these experiences, because it frankly is do or die. We have, we are seeing where, not balancing those trade-offs of where to invest the way the market has moved, and being able to have that strategic seat at the table at the board level to be able to, make those trade-offs, I think is critical. But, when you think about the role of the CMO, unlocking and getting back to the basics of unlocking and uncovering where are the abundant markets. I think we probably have all experienced that who our ideal customer profile was in 2020 planning may be very different now, given the realities of the global economy. Being able to adapt and shift and stand up new businesses very quickly based on where the market is the role of marketing. And I think we have to get on our front foot. If we weren't already, we must be on the front foot going forward with the business. So, not just about our brand and communications, and demand gen, but then also where will we unlock future growth to drive the business forward? I talked a little bit about, having this open culture. I think so much of marketers So much of what we have to do as marketers today is to also tap into the hearts and minds of our employees, having that very strategic alignment with the CEO, your chief people officer, across the whole C-suite on the role of culture in accelerating your brand vision. Mm-hmm. It's so crucial because we've seen it a lot in the past few months that actions speak louder than words. We have to create core business practices in the way we operate across every dimension of our brand that matters to us, whether it's environmental, societal, or economic differentiation, but it has to show up in how you operate as a business. I just firmly believe that in all my experiences, the most highly differentiated brands are also the ones that walk the talk, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. So that you have to show up in that way.
No, there's no question that the culture and if you want to call it brand purpose, I think we might be time to, not that the term isn't extremely important, but it might be time to evolve how we talk about it. But there's no question that culture and being a purpose-led brand or a purpose-led organization are very much connected. And I think it's great cultures that also create great brands. So then how do you continue to create that culture if we're all working remotely? Is it again through that, does one have to consider the digital experience for all stakeholders, not only for the end consumer?
Yes, absolutely. It's such a great point, Deborah. You are so right, because how often have we encountered a brand where the experience for us as an existing customer versus attracting a new customer is different? Being able to bridge that.
Yes, it always, with your cable costs, it's always amazing how much cheaper it is when you're new.
Right. And what does that do in terms of your consumer loyalty for that brand? If you're seeing disconnected messages or disconnected experiences online, or the experience in terms of your partners and the suppliers that you work with, I think that looking across the whole all of the digital touch points that are crucial for running your business, regardless of who owns in the corporate environment, who's the driver behind the strategy, bringing all of those together with one vision, one strategic plan and roadmap to enable the best customer experience. And there are multiple touch points that may sit in other parts of your organization outside of marketing. But I do believe it's our role to set the digital vision for the company and bring everyone together in a common vision of what success looks like. And I think it's our time. It's a really exciting time. I think that, where your company may have compromised on investing in digital in the past, now is the time to raise that conversation to the forefront, because it's crucial for accelerating business growth and keeping people connected and being a part of being in a global business. Many of us are operating in global businesses, and to be able to accelerate and scale how we operate around the world is really crucial.
I just want to let our listeners know that several years ago, you were at SAP Ariba and were a champion of their procurement system, where you actually were able to let buyers know if this was a sustainable company, if it was keeping up to the right labor requirements, and so on. And as you were talking now, it made me realize just how vast or just how extensive a company has to be in terms of making sure that all of these elements are pointing to making them a sustainable, purpose-led, valued, caring, organization in an era of stakeholder capitalism. And I do genuinely believe that many companies are embracing it, moving in that direction. Like everything else, some are champions in it, some are learning. Some need more time, might have to worry about revenues right now, and can't focus beyond that, or whatever it is. But do you think we have a long way to go in getting to an ideal vision of the corporation of the future, or are we well on our way now, or really awareness comes before actions? You talked a lot about actions, but what do you think?
It's no secret that I, as a digital innovator, as a marketing leader, have always moved things in parallel. Deborah, I think that we always have to constantly be running strategy to execution, always at the same time. And you bring up my past experience in global supply chains and the work we did with the United Nations in particular. I'm proud of around, trying to raise the transparency and visibility of modern slave labor in the supply chain. I took a role after that in HR. I was the CMO of SAP SuccessFactors. And so this topic on employee brand advocacy, I am so passionate about, because I see how intrinsically linked our employee experience is in our companies and what that actually means to our brand. So it shouldn't be a huge surprise that now I find myself in one of the most advanced digital experience platform companies within Episerver, to really lead this, what marketing leadership means in this next chapter, this next era of hyper-personalization and the vision we need to achieve. Already in the conversations I have with CMOs and digital teams all over the world, these topics are coming forward. And I think that when we look at our core business practices, it's understanding what can we do today in the here and now to take action. What are some of the core business practices that you can adopt even within your own function, whether that's your hiring and recruiting and views on diversity within your team and how you create agility within your team, not just by having diverse perspectives, but in the way you act, I think is crucial. Also, the partner relationships that you have within your agency partners and your ecosystem. What are some of the practices that you can take in how you manage your agency relationships and what expectations you have in the agency partners that you select to work with, and do they share your values? I think those are a couple of examples where even in the immediate term, you can start leading by example. And I believe more than ever, marketing has the opportunity to lead by example for the corporation. Show how these business practices don't have to be disconnected. And I do believe, I always have, that the more we can connect the dots for the organization, the more that we can show that we can close gaps, whether in the digital experience gap or in how we operate. The marketing can also be a driving force for cultural change, because the way we show up, we also, we also show up in a way that is reflective of our brands and our value to our customers, and we can defend it because of how we operate as a team as well.
It's amazing talking to you how quickly the time goes. I was going to ask you what your goals were as a CMO, but I think that you have answered them extensively. But why don't we end on, if you do have a simple goal that not that anything's simple anymore, but that you have a goal just for the future as your new role as CMO of Episerver, what would it be?
Well, I believe that, when it comes to digital experiences, customers don't want to compromise, and they don't need to anymore. As we've talked about, the balance between creating exceptional experiences, but then feeling like you are forced to settle on how you are deploying technology to enable a world-class experience that you no longer really have to compromise. And we're really passionate about that at Epi. And so instead of having to choose, between speed and quality, that you are working within a platform that allows you to create content quickly and then be able to optimize as you go. That you no longer have to compromise between something that's high effort or low effort, but low end, instead to get the best of both. And so I really believe that what we're creating at Epi is truly the first of its kind digital experience platform that's connecting all of these dots for the marketer, the content editor, the web development team, everyone who's involved in driving the business, the digital business forward, especially now more than ever. And I'm excited to bring that brand value promise to the market and really help accelerate the growth of this incredible global business.
Well, I think you might now be known as the person who believes that consumers or customers never have to compromise again. So we won't hold you to that, but we're certainly going to keep our eyes out to see how it goes. And I do hope you will join us again, because I think that you probably have a lot of extraordinary stories about brands, and I'd love to hear those. So I do hope you'll come back and join us.
I will. Thank you for having me.
A pleasure. See you soon, I hope, in our virtual world, right?
We will meet again. We
will. Take care. All right. Bye-bye now. Thanks, Kirsten, for being a part of today's show and for playing an essential role in our industry at the intersection of marketing and technology. Now back to Brendan.
And that concludes today's podcast. Thanks again for listening. For more information on The Internationalist, please go to our website, www.theinternationalist.com. By the way, there's a hyphen between the and internationalist. That's where you'll find more information on podcasts and interviews, as well as highlights of our various initiatives, including Marketing Makes a World of Difference, Internationalist Insights and Studies and Intelligence Briefs, awards and case studies and best practices, peer-to-peer marketing think tanks and forums, and the Internationalist Press. The ability to inspire people to be their best selves is valuable in difficult times. We feel very strongly about the fact that no one does this better than us.